Students, in the previous lecture I was talking about how to analyze univariate data. Now I want to take you to the real subject of statistics, and the soul of statistics lies in probability. Statistics, if it analyzes probabilistic or chance events, uncertain events, and most of the social behavior is uncertain, then we have to use the concept of probability. In this lecture, I would try to keep the level of discussion simple, and I will just define probability in empirical research, discuss two laws of probability and give examples of how the concept of probability applies in studies of society. Probability, as I said, that probability is used in study of uncertain events, which can be described only in terms of probabilities or chances of occurrence of different types of events. Any behavior in social sciences is actually, any real behavior is probabilistic or depends on chance. When we talk at the aggregate level or macro level, we generally relate one type of social facts to other types of social facts in a deterministic manner. Like if I am using a model in which I assume that rate of growth of India's population will be this, and I assume that the rate of growth will be exponential, then using the present population and the rate of growth, I can project or forecast what would be India's population 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and so on. That is deterministic model. In probabilistic models, we allow for the possibility of fertility, mortality, migration, etc., factors affecting population to be random or stochastic or probabilistic. It is a matter of probability how many children on the average a woman will bear in India's population in next 5 years. Nobody can predict with 100% confidence that this is going to be the fertility pattern. We are also not sure about the nature of or pattern of fall in mortality or deaths due to different diseases or migration patterns. So, we need probability models, and in using probability models, first of the things we need to define is what is probability. Probability is a measure of chance of occurrence of an event in an experiment, and by convention it is defined this way, that the value of probability always lies between 0 and 1. Probability cannot be negative and probability cannot exceed 1. There are so many definitions of probability actually, geometric definition, empirical definition, there are theoretical definitions, but in empirical works probability is estimated from the data, observations, experiments, on number of times an event occurs in a large number of experiments or observations. Now, what is this large number? There is no answer to this issue, how large the large number is. Sometimes for many statistical purposes, a size of 30 itself can be called large, sometimes a size of 200 can be called small, depends on the purpose, objectives, the probability distributions we are using and the applications of probability. but larger is the number of observations, the closer one would be to the theoretical measure of probability. In notations, in probability and subsequent lectures we cannot avoid notations. P probability is defined as R divided by N, where N tends to infinity. R refers to number of times an event occurs, and N is the total number of independent trials or experiments or observations. N tends to infinity, that is N tends to infinity implies that N is a very large number. In theory, infinity is the largest possible number. Nothing can be larger than infinity, but in practice 500, 1000, 1500 or 2000, these figures themselves may be called very large. It depends on the experiment. If we are examining the impact of some new drugs on cancer patients, 50 itself can be a large number, because you cannot get a large number of cases of cancer patients who are willing to try the new drugs or who can volunteer to try the new drugs, while in a fertility survey a number 70,000, 80,000 may also be small for a country like India. This is how objective probability is defined. So, if you toss a coin, head and tail would be two outcome, and if you toss a coin 500 times and head occurs 240 times, then 240 divided by 500, this can be called the probability of occurrence of head in case of the probability event that a coin is tossed. In our day to day life, our decisions are always based on subjective probability. However, subjective probability, as we are used to use this term subjective in sociology in the sense of meanings assigned to something by the actor. So, subjective is personal, actor is specific, it is not objective or scientific or something pertaining to society at large. What do I feel? I give an example. For example, when I go to railway station to catch the morning Shatabdi, the train which runs from Kanpur to Delhi, I believe, this is what subjective probability means, I believe that most probably train is at right time. That means for me the probability that train will be at right time, P equal to 1, subjective probability is 1. But when I go to catch Sangam Express which goes from Kanpur to Meerut, I believe that the chance is only half that the train will be on time. This is subjective probability, and subjective probability is based on the subjective experiences of actors. It may have happened in the past that suppose I go to catch Sangam Express 10 times and it is late 5 times, then 5 by 10, somewhere in my mind a subjective probability of 5 divided by 10 or 0.5 comes. Sometimes we do not make exact calculations like this, but consciously or unconsciously we think about probabilities of various events. Such probabilities are based on our experiences and sometimes also on intuitions. And based on data, we keep on reviving these probabilities. It is possible that though I believe today that Sangam Express will be in time, the probability is only 0.5. After 5 years, I say that the probability is 0.7. If during this time, during these 5 years, my experiences are more positive, then I will revise the probability. This kind of revision of probability based on experiences comes under Bayesian law of probability. We will give you an idea of Bayesian law of probability towards the end. Taking that example of head and tail, suppose a coin is tossed 500 times and head results 239 times, then the probability of getting a head is 239 by 500 or 0.478. This is based on evidence. This is an objective probability, and probability of getting a tail equal to if head appears 239 times, tail appears 261 times. So, 261 divided by 500 equal to 0.522 or 1 minus 0.478. See that 0.478 plus 0.522 is 1, because either head will come or tail will, something will happen, and because either this or that will happen, they are exhaustive events, nothing else can happen, then the sum of probabilities of these two events will be 1. If the coin is unbiased, we expect the probabilities of getting a head or a tail on the top to be equal to 0.5, same equal probabilities 0.5. What do the above observations show? Observations are that out of 500 times we get a head 239 times. This is the observation. We expect that if the probability is 0.5, then the head must come 250 times, but head is coming only 239 times. So, either the coin is not unbiased, means the probability of head is not 0.5, the probability of head is 0.478, or the difference between 0.5 and 0.478 may occur because this n equal to 500 is not sufficiently large. Maybe if you toss the coin 5,000 times, then the number of heads will be closer to 2,500. So, as the denominator increases, as it moves towards infinity, you find that the number of heads is moving towards half of the total number of observations. This is the meaning of n tends to infinity, that you will get head half of the times if coin is unbiased, provided the denominator is sufficiently large. This may not happen in 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 trials. If you toss a coin 2 times only, then even with probability p of getting a head equal to 0.5, you may find that head does not appear at all or head appears both of the times. From this you can also get an idea of expected frequency. Let the probability of occurrence of an event be p, and let the total number of trials observations be n, then the expected frequency of the event would be n into p. Expected number of heads in tossing an unbiased coin 500 times will therefore be 0.5 multiplied by 500 equal to 250. And if the probability of rural to urban migration is 0.006 and the size of the village is 50,000, then in a given year 50,000 multiplied by p or 0.006 equal to 300, 300 persons are expected to be migrating towards urban areas. From a village of size 50,000, we expect that 300 people will migrate towards urban areas. So, obviously from a bigger village more people will migrate, from a smaller village less people will migrate. There are two rules of probability, one is called additive, another is called multiplicative. Additive rule of probability applies to situations where there is a possibility of occurrence of two or more events and they are mutually exclusive. If one event occurs, the other event will not occur. Then the probability that either A or B occurs, or probability of A plus B, for OR we write plus because additive rule of probability applies here. So, P A plus B, either A or B equal to probability of A plus probability of B. You throw a die and the possibilities are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and if it is unbiased, the probability of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are same, 1 by 6. The probability that either 1 or 5 comes up will be 1 by 6 for 1 plus 1 by 6 for 5 or 2 by 6 or 1 by 3. This is what the additive rule of probability implies. Multiplicative rule applies to independent events, means there is no relationship between A and B. Probability that A and B occur and the two events are independent, or PAB, this is how we write for independent events occurring together, A and B occur together, will be probability of A multiplied by probability of B. For additive rules, if there are, I am explaining this additive rule further, if there are two mutually exclusive events, that is if one occurs the other will not occur, whose probabilities of occurrence are P1 and P2, then the probability of occurrence of any one of them would be P1 plus P2. Thus, if probability of happening of an event is P, the probability of not happening of that event would be 1 minus P or Q. An example, for example, if the probability of a child dying in infancy due to tetanus is 0.123 and the probability of dying due to diarrhea is 0.045, then the probability of dying due to either of them, either tetanus or diarrhea is 0.123 plus 0.045 or 0.168. We assume that these two events are mutually exclusive. If the two diseases are not mutually exclusive, the probability of dying due to either will be 0.123 plus 0.045 minus probability of occurrence of both together equal to 0.162. This is a smaller figure than 0.168, which applies in case of independence of events. This figure also shows what mutually exclusive events mean. Event A is this A is red color space, B another event is this blue color circle. There are two circles A and B, and probability, and this whole rectangle shows the sample space, that something from this space can occur. A and B are two possibilities, but there are other possibilities. This space outside A and B are other possibilities. So, probability that either A occurs or B occurs, that will be probability of A plus probability of B. For example, the probability of getting a 4 or a 6 on the top in a throw of die would be 1 by 6 plus 1 by 6 or 1 by 3. Events which are not mutually exclusive, or events which are to some extent dependent on each other, like here there are two intersecting circles, this is A, this circle is B, but there is also a common area. In that case, probability of A plus B would not be probability of A plus probability of B only, but this will be probability of A plus probability of B minus probability of A and B, the area which is common to both. This has to be subtracted. So, the A plus B minus this common area, that will give us the probability that either A or B occurs. a number divisible by 2, this is an example, a number divisible by 2 or by 3 in a throw of die. 6 will be common, 6 is both divisible by 2 and divisible by 3. So, the probability would be 3 by 6, 3 by 6 for divisible by 2, there are 3 numbers divisible by 2, 2, 4 and 6. So, 3 by 6 plus 2 by 6, there are 2 numbers divisible by 3, 3 and 6. So, 3 by 6 plus 2 by 6 minus 1 by 6, 1 by 6 is common, something can be both divisible by 2 and by 3, 6 is divisible by 2 as well as by 3. So, we subtract this 1 by 6 from there and that is equal to 2 by 3. Okay. So, this is how we calculate probability of A plus B in case A and B are not mutually exclusive. For multiplicative rule, I said that if the events are independent, then probability of A and B happening together would be probability of A multiplied by probability of B. Now, the example is, if the probability of a child dying in infancy due to tetanus is 0.123 and the probability of his mother dying due to high blood pressure during this period is 0.045, then the probability of both the events, that in the first year of life the child will die due to tetanus and mother will die due to blood pressure, would be 0.123 multiplied by 0.045 or 0.0005535. Okay. Multiplicative rule for dependent events can be expressed like this, the probability of A and B equal to probability of AB equal to probability of A multiplied by probability of B given A. Probability of B given A is called conditional probability of B when A is assumed to be happening, conditional probability. For independent events, conditional probability of B given A is same as probability of B because they are independent and therefore, probability of A and B is probability of A multiplied by probability of B. Imagine that you select one person from India's population randomly. The probability that the person is illiterate, and the term randomly means that it can be any person. The probability of selection of a person from India's population randomly means that all the people have the same chance of selection. So, the probability that the person is illiterate male equal to probability of illiterate, probability that the randomly selected person would be illiterate multiplied by probability that the randomly selected person will be male. And these probabilities will come from empirical data, from understanding of ratios of illiterate persons and ratios of males. So, if the two things are independent, then we can write probability of illiterates in population of India multiplied by probability of males or ratios, probabilities are ratios if sex and literacy are independent. Otherwise, ratio of illiterates has to be multiplied by proportion of males among illiterate people. This is the conditional probability. So, ratio of illiterates multiplied by proportion of males not in the entire population of India, but among the illiterates. Probability change, like this is like a bag containing 5 balls, 3 are red, 2 are blue. If one of them is taken, then if the ball that is taken outside is red, then you have 2 blue, 2 4. If a blue ball is taken outside, then you have 1 blue and 3 red. Now, here the probability of selection of blue would be 2 by 4. Here probability of selection of blue would be 2 by 5, and here probability of selection of blue would be 1 by 4. Now, look at this bag containing a number of balls. How many balls does it contain? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There are 10 balls, and there are 2 blue. So, probability of selection of a blue ball, if you select only one, then that will be 2 divided by 10 or 1 by 5. This concept of probability can be explained by taking some examples, like example of stopping rule, when should couple stop childbearing. Using additive and multiplicative rules, calculate the proportions of people having 0, 1, 2, 3 children if the stopping rule is 2 sons. Guess. If the stopping rule is 2 sons, nobody will stop after 1 child. Certainly nobody will stop after 0 child, nobody will also stop after 1 child, because they are looking for 2 sons. Some people will stop after 2 sons. Who will be they? They will be those who have first child as son and second child also as son. If the probability of son is P, then the probability of stopping after 2 children would be P into P or P square. Who will stop after 3 children? 3 children, those people will stop after 3 who had only 1 son out of first 2, and they were waiting for 1 more son, and third child is son. The probability that the first 2 children are 1 son and 1 daughter, that will be P into Q. Q is the probability of daughter, 1 minus P is the probability of daughter. So, P into Q, and because the first child itself can be son or second child may be son. So, this PQ has to be multiplied by 2C1, any one is son out of 2, 2C1 into P into Q. So, 2PQ multiplied by that the third child is son. So, P again 2PQ into P or 2P square Q. Like this we can calculate probabilities of having 4 sons, probability of stopping after 4 children, probability of stopping after 5 children, or probability of stopping after alpha or n children in general. Since that is a simpler expression, I have written an expression for 2 sons and 1 daughter. I thought that this will be more complicated. Under the stopping at 3 means third time they were waiting for a daughter, under the stopping rule of 2 sons and 1 daughter. Now, this is a complex problem. Probability of stopping after 3, nobody will stop after 1 or 2, because they want 2 sons and 1 daughter. Probability of 3 will mean, now out of 3 they have 2 sons and 1 daughter. Who will be they? They will be people who had 2 sons in first 2 trials, or first 2 children are sons and the third child is daughter. Or, this plus stands for or. So, this is one probability that out of 2 children, first 2 children both are sons, and S means probability of son square multiplied by 1 minus S, or it is like Q 1 minus P equal to Q. So, 1 minus S, 1 minus probability of son raised to power 1, third one is daughter not son. Or they were waiting for a son. So, out of first 2 there was one son, 2 C 1 into probability of son raised to power 1 and then probability of daughter raised to power 1 into probability of son S, probability of son P. Now, this is how we can calculate probabilities of 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 children. From the idea of probabilities of 0, 1, 2, 3 means we can imagine that there is a random variable x which takes value 0, 1, 2, 3 and there are probabilities associated with these numbers. Then the expected number may be defined as sigma or sum, sigma stands for sum of product of x, value of x multiplied by respective probabilities Px. So, once you know that probabilities of stopping after 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 children are these, you can multiply these 0, 1, 2 by respective probabilities and add and you get expected number of children. Using the same logic you can also know how many of them will be sons and how many will be daughters and what will the sex ratio of this population. Is it not interesting that there are some questions which cannot be answered by conducting surveys. If you want to know that stopping rule changes as it has changed in the past, initially people believed that at the time of independence that more number of sons means that people are more lucky. Then they started thinking of limiting family size, then of 3 children, but out of 3 they want 2 sons, 1 daughter. Then there are so many couples who want only 2 children irrespective of sex composition, and in cities these days they want only 1 child. So, stopping rule changes. If we want to know that when stopping rule changes, what will be its implication for sex ratio in a population, this question cannot be answered by conducting surveys, you cannot do experiments on ethical grounds, but if you know the concept of probability a little bit and probability distribution, if you can write down possibilities of number of children and probabilities against these possibilities, then you can know what will be the family size, average number of children in that population. Nathan K. Fitts, a mathematical demographer who has worked in this area, has derived expressions for averages, variances, etc. To explain this concept of expected value more, when we take insurance policies, the rule is that if somebody dies, then a certain amount for which a person is insured is given to the member's wife or spouse or children of that person, dependent of that person or the nominee. If the person survives, then person keeps on paying, and there is a loss to person. In case of death, there is a gain to household of that deceased person. So, what is the expected value per policy? If you know that probabilities of dying and surviving are given, they come from life tables constructed for the population. We have life tables for India, and it is a very simple illustration. If the probability of dying is 0.0025, then the probability of survival or living would be 1 minus 0.0025 or 0.9975. In case a person dies and the person insures for $100,000, means 1 lakh, in our case it will be rupees 1 lakhs, then the value to company is minus 100,000 or 1 lakh dollars or rupees. In case the person survives, person lives, then the value to the company is 0 into x value is minus this probability, and this value to the company is minus $250, 0.0025 multiplied by minus $100,000, that gives you minus $250. If the person lives, the value to the company is 0. So, the expected value is this plus this or minus 250 per policy. That means, if a company wants to make $40 per policy as profit, then the company should charge a premium of $250 plus $40. This 250 is this expected value. In case the person dies, the probability is this, value to the company is this, the product is this. In case the person survives, then the probability of survival is this, value to company is 0, and therefore probability into value is this. Sum of the two is minus 250. That means the company loses $250 in insuring a person for $1 lakh, and therefore a company should charge $250 per insurance policies to remain in no profit no loss situation, and if they want to earn $40 per insurer, then they should charge a premium of $290 per policy. In the example of stopping rules, I use a term NCR, this is called combination. This NCR, sometimes also written as C and in parenthesis N comma R. This is how many groups of size R can be made from an aggregate of size N. It is expressed as factorial n divided by factorial r into factorial n minus r. For example, 4C2 equal to factorial 4 divided by factorial 2 into factorial 4 minus 2, and factorial means you multiply natural numbers 1, 2, 3, 4 up to that value. So, factorial 4 means 4, 3, 2, 1. Factorial 2 means 2, 1. Factorial 4 minus 2 is factorial 2 and it means 2 into 1, and the value of 4C2 is 6. It actually means that if there are 4 units A, B, C, D and you want 2 out of them, any 2 out of them, in how many ways you can get 2 out of 4 A, B, C, D. It may be AB, AC, AD, BC, BD or CD. There are 6 ways, and this is this number 6. So, when we say 2 sons out of 4 children, 4C2, then it can be in 6 ways. If we say 3 sons out of 4 children, then 4C3, that will be 4 in 4 ways, and this is if you write values of probability of n children against all possible values of n and add, then sigma px will be 1, because something or the other will happen. You write all possible values 0 to 15 or 0 to infinity in theory. So, sigma of px would be 1. In social sciences, estimate of probability comes from empirical data or frequency distribution, and estimate of probability therefore comes from surveys or experiments or observations, and this estimate of probability leads to estimate of frequencies or estimates of frequency distribution. Again a hypothetical example of a bivariate frequency distribution. There are 7710 persons who have been cross classified according to two characteristics, education and migrant, type of migrants. These are the numbers. If we divide all these numbers by 7710, we get probabilities. What is the chance that a person is high schooled? Would be number of persons who are high schooled divided by 7710, total number of persons, that is the probability of high school. Likewise, you can calculate what is the probability that a randomly selected person from this population is a migrant and long distance migrant. So, number of long distance migrants divided by total population. What is the chance that a person is high school and long distance migrant? Multiply the two probabilities. These are the probabilities. This for example 0.074189 is the probability that a person is long distance migrant. 0.097665 is the probability that a person is high school pass and above, intermediate, graduate or postgraduate. If you multiply these two probabilities, you will have the probability that the person is both a long distance migrant and having education high school and above, and that is this. So, when you multiply these two, you get 0.01, this is probability of high school and long distance migrant. We assume that the two events seem to be dependent. If we assume that the two events are dependent, then this probability of high school and long distance migration would not be 0.010376, it will be something else, because from this we have to subtract probability of the randomly selected person having both the characteristics simultaneously. There is a Bayesian law. Bayesian law means you begin with subjective probabilities and or hypothesis, and then based on the data you revise the hypothesis. There is a Bayes theorem. So, we start with prior probabilities or assumptions or hypotheses or subjective probabilities, we collect data, apply Bayes theorem, and then we have posterior probabilities or revised probabilities. This is only formalization of what we actually do in life, that in taking any decision we consider all possibilities, and to make a more evidence based decision, we collect data and revise our probabilities. Bayes theorem is defined like this. Bayes theorem produces the most probable hypothesis H given the data X and the knowledge about prior probabilities of all hypotheses. Let me repeat, Bayes theorem produces the most probable hypothesis H given the data X and the knowledge about prior probabilities of all hypotheses. There are so many hypotheses, and with those hypotheses some respective probabilities are associated. Bayes theorem is expressed as probability of hypothesis H given data X equal to probability of that if hypothesis H is true, then what is the probability of getting the data that we have got? P X H, this is reverse of this. This is the probability that a hypothesis is true given the data. We want to revise our hypothesis, and for revising hypothesis, for revising subjective probabilities or prior probabilities, we use Bayes theorem. Now, if that hypothesis is true, under the assumption that the hypothesis is true, what will be the probability of getting the sample that we have got? That is P x h multiplied by the prior probability of h divided by probability of x, in general probability of x. H may be true, H may not be true. P x shows the probability of observing x as sum of probabilities of x under H and non-H, when hypothesis H is true and when hypothesis H is false. Sometimes there may be more than two hypotheses also. So, x under H1, H2, H3 under different conditions. We can start with the assumption that the probabilities of H1, H2, H3 are P1, P2, P3, and then we collect data and then we revise P1, P2, P3. This is what Bayes theorem does. So, while in earlier probability based approaches, we assume a probability distribution, we assume p values, we assume a constancy of p values and choose an appropriate distribution, apply to empirical data. For example, for data on income, for a given income distribution, you may assume that normal distribution applies and you assume that there is a constant as mean of the distribution and you can estimate that mean from the given data. This is how the traditional probability based approach goes. In Bayesian approach, we make no assumption about probabilities. We do not assume that there is a normal, we do not have to assume that the distribution is normal or what. We assume something about the constants of the population and make 2, 3, 4, 5 hypotheses and fix probabilities of these hypotheses being true, and then after collecting data we revise these probabilities. That is what Bayes theorem does. You know, when I said that the hypothesis may be H1, H2, H3, several hypotheses, here this is the way in which Bayes theorem is expressed in literature. Let A1, A2, AK be a collection of k mutually exclusive and exhaustive events with prior probabilities PAI, I is 1 to k. Then for any event B for which probability of B is greater than 0, the posterior probability of A, which is shown by AJ, is given given that B has occurred, is probability of AJ if B has occurred. See, probability of AJ, now we are revising probability. Earlier the probability of I is probability PAI, now it is PAJ, j equal to 1 to k, revised probability given the data B, that if an event B has occurred with probability PV greater than 0, that is PAJ intersection B divided by probability of B, and then this probability of B given AJ into probability of AJ divided by a sum for all possibilities A1, A2, A3, A4, all the possibilities. These are posterior probabilities, these are here prior probabilities. And there are some desirable properties of Bayes classifier, incrementality. With each training example, the prior and the likelihood can be updated dynamically. It is flexible and robust to errors. This approach is flexible and robust to errors. You encounter less errors. Combines prior knowledge and observed data. Prior probability of a hypothesis multiplied with probability of the hypothesis given the training data. And probabilistic hypothesis outputs not only a classification, but a probability distribution over all classes. In Bayes theorem, you can make several hypotheses. You can assume prior probabilities of these hypotheses being true, collect data which was indicated by B in the earlier slide, that some B event occurs. This B event may be data, training data, and in the light of B, then we revise estimates of different hypotheses or hypotheses of different events. Thank you. This is what I wanted to say about probability. So, friends, in this lecture I have introduced the concept of probability. There are actually three types of events. There are some deterministic events, or we assume them to be deterministic, that this is going to happen, and there are some chance events where we assume that 2 or 3 things or 4 things, multiple things can happen, and we can guess, we can make estimates of probabilities of occurrence of different things. Like one may say that rainfall would be a deterministic, rainfall would be a probabilistic thing, in which you can say that the probability that there will be normal rainfall in the next year is 0.5, the probability that the rainfall will be less than normal is 0.2, and the probability that rainfall will be more than normal would be 0.3. Sum of 0.2, 0.5 and 0.3 is 1. This kind of events are called probabilistic events or random events, stochastic. It is in study of these types of things or study of behavior of humans in which probabilistic concepts applies. Like I gave you the example of migration. You can, on the basis of census data, calculate what is the probability of a person migrating from rural to urban areas, urban to rural areas, rural to rural or urban to urban areas. These are probabilistic events. And there are some events which are so chaotic, critical or catastrophic, which cannot be predicted, like whether there will be world war this year. Very difficult to predict. It may happen, it may not happen. Storms, earthquakes, epidemics. The study of probability or probability distribution is of immense value in studies of events which are subjected to chance and whose chance can be guessed or can be calculated based on data. Now, most of the things, most of the events and most of the action or human behavior is probabilistic. That is, although many times we apply deterministic models. In one lecture I gave the example of Gibbs model of migration. In 40s, Gibbs developed a model of migration, that migration between two places 1 and 2, M1, 2 is a constant of proportionality into population of the first place P1, population of the second place P2 divided by the distance separating the two places D1, 2. This is deterministic model. Although he found that this deterministic model fits the data for United States very well, but somebody can doubt that in different cultures or at different points of time, and the model may not fit. It is a deterministic model. But if we have data on probabilities of migrating from a place of population P1 to other places of different sizes, or probability of migrating to a place of size P2, then we apply a probability model. The example of stopping rule is a good example of how probabilistic models can help us in answering some questions which cannot be otherwise answered through surveys or experiments. You cannot do a survey of impact of stopping rules, and you also, because stopping rules are norms, these are principles which belong to society. At one given point of time there will be one norm. You cannot see the impact of changes in norms on average number of children. You also cannot do experiments on ethical grounds. But if you know probabilities concept a little bit, and you can calculate that under this stopping rule, if the probability of getting a son is this, probability of getting a daughter is this, then what are the probabilities that people will stop after 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 children. From that you can calculate expected number of children, you can calculate which is equivalent to total fertility rate, you can calculate expected number of sons, expected number of daughters, and the sex ratio, expected sex ratio in that population. So, probability concepts can be, probability is essential to study advanced statistics. The biggest users of probability are those concerned with sample surveys, because what you will get from a sample, you have a large population or population of size capital N, and you want a sample of size small n. There are so many ways, capital N, C, small n, and as I have explained, capital N, C, small n would be factorial capital N divided by factorial small n and factorial capital N minus small n. So many surveys are possible. Each survey will give one, each sample will give you one unique result. Some samples may give same result, but samples are generally samples yield different results, and this difference of result from sample to sample is called sampling fluctuation. In studies based on sample data, the concept of probability and probability distribution is of immense interest. The next lecture will be devoted to probability distribution. Thank you.